You are listening to Personalization Outbreak, a podcast about the collapse of traditional corporate standards in today's more personalized world. I'm Glenn Llopis. I'm a leadership strategist, author, contributor to Forbes, and founder of the Leadership in the Age of Personalization movement. On this show, I'm interviewing executives across multiple sectors to find out how the balance between standardization and personalization can exist. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Earning Conviction series, part of the Personalization Outbreak podcast. I'm Glenn Llopis. Today we have a special guest with a powerful story, and this one starts somewhere you would not expect. See, it starts in a college career services office. Fran Berrick spent 25 years inside corporate America. Youngest ever ad director at Condé Nast Vanity Fair at 29, a team of 60, $1 million business. Then she walked away from the title, built a media sales company from nothing and grew it to $20 million internationally. And on the outside, she had every answer the system rewards. But on the inside, she was learning the answers were never the point. See, today she runs Spearmint Coaching, where she helps people move from stuck to unstoppable, where she focuses on elevating female business leaders. And when we first spoke, she said something to me that stopped me. She said, people do not pay for answers. They pay her to help them learn how to ask the right questions. See the gap? See, that's the difference between having the answer and knowing the question. And that's what this Earning Conviction series is all about. So before we get started, please click the like button below, share it with your colleagues, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and social media at Glenn Llopis. Fran, how are you doing today? It's great to have you.
Thanks, Glenn. Great to be here.
Well, if you're feeling so great to be here, how did you feel yesterday during the World Cup final?
Right.
Since you're such a big, you're a Brit, you're a big soccer fan. How did that impact you yesterday?
It was actually worse a couple of days before when the UK just were beat. They were outplayed. Argentina just, wiped knocked their socks off. I thought, yes, did you watch yesterday's game?
Of course I did.
I actually was on a plane for most of the time when it was going on. Like the whole plane was like riveted. It was really kind of a boring game, and there's got to be a great parable for coaching there, because I think what Argentina had tried every other game, which is kind of wear them down and save their resources for the last 2 minutes, just did not work with Spain. They were nowhere on the offense, nowhere. They played a total defensive game, and as a result, Spain trampled them. And they had zero attempts. We had one attempted goal, one, which I found like, where are they? It just was so strange. Yeah.
Well, having said that, maybe they thought they had the right answer based upon how they played the other games, but maybe they didn't have the right question.
Right.
And I think that's what we're going to be talking about today. So let's jump into this. So what really drew me to wanting to share your story with people is your take on just readiness around not just asking the right questions, but readiness for what's next. So why do you think that colleges are failing to prepare students for careers? I mean, this is a very heavy question, which that has a lot of debate behind it.
Yes.
But you have a take on this that's very interesting. So tell us why you think that they're failing to prepare students for careers.
I actually don't think there's enough debate over this. And I think that some of the declining figures you see certainly during COVID and college admission, 2-year, 4-year programs had to do with people sort of weighing up, like, for the amount of money I'm, throwing down the hole, what is my kid kind of leaving with? And AI is even going to make, I'm fielding questions all the time. It's like, do I need to go to college anymore? It's like, well, the question is, what do you want at the end of this, right? And if the path is more vocational or perhaps more tech, or you can learn it at Google U, maybe that's the great road. The short answer is, academic institutions are really good at what they do, which is teaching academic studies, but they don't focus and they will profess this. Three key things, human leadership, which are the soft skills that employers look for. Can you make contact? Are you articulate? How can you demonstrate critical thinking? They don't demonstrate that. They don't teach that at all. They don't have bar one course that I know of at Stanford, which is called Design Your Life, which is a fabulous book that I would recommend for any of our listeners who's interested in this topic. They don't teach self-knowledge, self-awareness, help, the average sophomore create a whiteboard of where they may want to go. And then finally, the most obvious thing is they don't then give them a pragmatic toolkit for selling themselves. Um, they don't, because in a large respect, career services have been sort of the neglected stepchild. They're underfunded, they're understaffed. Um, and I would say, the thing I consistently see is they don't understand how to engage with the average undergrad.
Okay, well, first, I remember you said during our prep call, and again, correct me if the numbers are off a bit, but something like 10 people in career services for 40,000 students. The
That
ratio
is one
seems a bit
specific school
off.
I mentioned. We won't mention the name. Yeah.
No, that's okay. That's okay, but it's a real data point.
It's a
How do the, how do we fix this? Like where are we at? What kind of questions do we need to start asking ourselves
right.
in higher education to prepare students for their careers?
Yeah. Look, I think the low-lying fruit is two things. What can we do in terms of automation? Handshake, which is one tool you may be aware of, was supposed to be that one-stop shopping or platform where undergrads they can get some professional development tools, they can kind of get some online stuff, you can get access to it. But the reality is shows you, and it's a pretty good tool. It shows you it doesn't engage us. I've been on Handshake, useless jobs, can't tell me how to speak to an employer. They don't see it as a robust, useful strategic tool. That's one. So you could automate, you could try to at least increase your offerings and grab kids where they are on their phones. Thank you very much. Or you could actually spend some of of the tuition income towards developing programs and a reasonable process that, you can scale. I mean, some schools, you're talking about the big, top 10 schools, large, non-Ivy League schools. You're talking about huge numbers. My my first urgent suggestion would be to embed all of this in curriculum courses. There are certain courses that would lend themselves. You're taking communications 101, marketing 101. How about self-marketing, right? Um, if you are there's certain coursework I think that would naturally align with some of this easily. If colleges felt it was if they were if they decided that that was an important ROI for them. Right now, most of the people that I talk to, even the elevated ones, they know who they are in career services, just don't. I won't get money for that, Fran. I won't, I can't hire any more staff. The question they don't ask themselves is, what can I be doing to improve outcomes for my students?
Okay, so let's go back to the people or person, doesn't really matter, who said, I won't get the money for it. I
Yep.
won't get the
Yep.
resources for it. What should they be more convicted about?
That it really comes on a super high level. I mean, you're talking about budgetary.
Okay, well, okay, but they know that they're under delivering. So what should they be more convicted about asking?
What are low cost ways? What are ways that I can implement? What are things that I can do to get students engaged with career services and to provide some sort of process that will help them strategically deploy, right? That's what they should be asking. That would be the automated route. I don't find very many career services, and it's ironic because Glenn, very many of the staff of these, they're not coming from a coaching paradigm. They're academics. They're
Yeah,
coming
they're
from, they taught
academics.
whatever they taught. I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, they ended up in career services, English. I'm trying to think of it, psychology. Some of them have coaching certifications, but they usually come from the world of academia. And I hate to say it, this is where they go to be on the bench afterwards. Sorry, that's the truth. Yeah.
Well, so what?
It's
So
the
let me
lowest paying job probably in most of the Ivy League schools.
Wow. What career services is?
Yes. Yeah. Go look online. It's like I look all the time. It's like what why do we have this like lack of talent? There's some like Andy Chan, who's at Wake Forest, is one of like really an enlightened human being. I've spoken with him a couple of times. He did like a little a TED talk on like, kind of why career services must die kind of thing. He's head of career services at Wake Forest, and they have but that is a school of, let's say, 6,000 kids. And it's extremely um, they fund their career services department, and they treat it like the business. They treat it like the business it should be. Yeah.
So before we move on, I want to just touch on this. What kind of questions do you think students should be asking career services?
Right. That if they were asking, if they were asking. The reality is that they usually go in desperately in the 11th hour asking, what can I do to get a job in a month? You know, Realistically, when they're sophomores or freshmen, even, they should be asking, what tools do you have for me so I can understand what my unique operating system is? What certified tools do you have to understand where I belong in the world of work? What resources do you have for me, i.e., affinity groups, alumni networks to network now, not senior year. What internships are you promoting? All those kind of questions. What you got? You know.
I love it. Good, good. So thanks for navigating that question a bit because I think the deeper we got to it, uh, we realized that this is not just an institutional issue, it's an individual student issue as well.
100%.
Um, a- and I think that's, where things are headed. The individual is expecting more, and so they need to start asking more. But they also need to learn how to ask the right questions because if the university doesn't have these tools, I could tell you that there's already independent tools that are in the works, and these are opportunities that are being missed by these institutions. So
Mm,
so let's move on. Let's move on. So why are questions so important?
mm,
That's why we're here, is to
right,
ask them and to address them. And how can we become better at asking them?
right. Um, Questions are important because if we want to improve, if we wish to grow, if we wish to have a self-understanding, curious people, I find there's not a direct line between curious people and successful people.
Hmm.
Even if it's not personally curious, meaning whatever their area of expertise, the more successful people that I meet who are growing within whatever lane they're in understand that it's not just what they're doing now that's important, it's what they're going to do in 10 minutes, 1 year, 10 years, whatever. Um, and to do that, you need to be curious and to ask questions. That challenges assumptions, that challenges, it encourages creative thinking. Um, and it creates opportunities too. You and I
Well,
previously discussed, except Malcolm Gladwell, he wrote that whole book on, the assumptions we make about people from the minute we see them. And I'm proud of myself when I meet someone and I ask questions about them. I mean, for me as a coach, this is deeply embedded in who I am. I naturally want to understand what makes everybody tick. That's kind of what I do every day, and I love that. But I don't think it's second nature for most people. It's easier for them just to put everybody in a box, you know?
I think that's the whole point is that when we ourselves have been put in our own boxes,
Mm.
we've been so conditioned to be what everybody else is so that we sound the same, act the same, ask the same questions. But when you actually know yourself, now that curiosity stems from a foundational roots of what matters to me about other people, so that I can then make it more about them.
Right. Yes, 100%. In one of my previous acts, as you mentioned, I had an ad sales business in the UK for many years and worked in New York. And I always used to joke that, people would say, what makes a great salesperson? I'm like, a genuine
Mhm.
curiosity. What I do is very uninteresting. I mean, I know what I do, right? What they do is fascinating to me all day long. I could sit and talk about whatever their business was, whatever widget they were making, whatever travel business, luxury goods. I found it fascinating. That's what I want to talk about.
So why do people get stuck in professional quicksand? And how do they get unstuck? I mean, I've got to believe that you deal with these kind of topics every day.
Oh, yeah. Um, I think if I was to give you one example or one reason, inertia. It's hard to keep, a body in once you're not in motion, takes a lot more energy to get up and go. People get comfortable. Uh, and then there's always a situation where, it's sort of sunk cost thinking, meaning that they can't afford to walk away from this. And some, by the way, that is a reality. That's, as I like to call it, it's a gravity issue. I got that. And then sometimes, what they need to do is think about if they're bored, is think about life renovations that won't change their pay scale, right? If what you don't have to be looking for a new job to try to learn a new professional skill, right? In fact, I would submit that the time to be looking for, to get your Excel certification, an AI certification and everything else is while you're really happy exactly where you are. I would say regarding your comment about me and fight, I would say it takes a lot more effort to play offense and defense, and I think that people, are comfortable where they are, and they don't really see what the end, what they don't see the reason. They get stuck in a narrow lane and don't see what the other opportunities are, and say this must be okay.
It's interesting you say that because I'm learning very quickly these days that the issue isn't strategy, my career strategy. It's there's a seeing gap. I mean, most people just can't see what they're looking for.
Right, for
And
sure.
if you can't see it, then you can't act on it. And I've often said that a lot of these things have to do with the environment that you work in, the
Sure.
people that you surround yourself with. And the other day I was talking to somebody, I said, "What percentage of your network adds real value
Mm,
to your career?" And she said, 2% if I'm lucky. And
wow.
I said, "Well, what are you going to do with the 98%?"
Right.
And I shared this question because it's a very real and very important.
Did she genuinely
Yeah,
think that
yeah, yeah.
98% was that?
They're done. Yeah, yeah. And it's because we love being around people that agree with us and inspire at a point where, well, I learned myself just a couple of years ago that it was time to say adios to about 30 people because I thought that they could add some level of value to
Right,
me because I'm all about reciprocation. But apparently, and no disrespect, I was the one adding all the value. And I
right.
asked that, and I want listeners to really pay close attention to that question. How many people really add value to your career? But go ahead, play off that with me.
No, I find that really interesting. I would submit, though, Glenn, that she hasn't really evaluated at 98% because in my networking take with clients, in my networking process, networking connections and idea sparks and opportunities can sometimes come from really weird places. Seriously. I
Uh,
mean,
mhm,
I can tell you just in terms of my own business, when I tell
mhm.
people what I do, I mean, in bizarre places, that we make the connection and I'll get a referral from, I wasn't looking for a referral. People ask me what I do. I told them what I do. Oh my God, I have someone you should really meet. On the other hand, I also have a certain group of people in my life who are not professional. I have many female friends who are not working, who yet they have husbands, they have brothers, they have kids, it's like you wouldn't necessarily think, and they're interested in what I do. They're really
Mhm.
genuinely interested. So sometimes I would say we also have a bit of the responsibility not to make our people interesting. And no one, everything should be give and take. If you're supporting people, you want them you hope that they would support you back as and when, right? As appropriate. Sometimes we don't explain to people, what it is that we need. We assume. that they're not there to help us. And that I find that isn't always the case either. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that at all. I think that the whole point was, do people in our network even know the value that we want to receive from them? Because I've often learned that people that have known us for a while, often they don't evolve as we evolve over
Yeah,
time. And
true.
I think that's the point is that, we're living at a time where the moment demands something differently from us today than it may have, 5 years ago. So
Mhm.
are they able to deliver that value during a moment that I need something different? And I think it's a two-way street, right? We have to be able to communicate those things so that people know, but are even the people that we surround ourselves, are they willing to evolve? But here's my
Many
next question.
no.
Go ahead.
No, I'm saying many don't. Many no is the answer. Many are not going willing to evolve.
Well, so then that's the next question. How do we become more convicted about what we really want in our career? How do we
Mm,
do that?
right. So um, I've been thinking about this for a bit because most people want uh, proof on a piece of paper. They want a contract that they're going to be
Yeah.
success, right? They want to they want a data point. And listen, what I do in my coaching practice I can give people data points all day long. Okay, you want a little bit of conviction that you're heading down the right, that we're on the right highway here, we can do that, no problem. But in the end, you have to kind of you have to intuit, you have to, ask yourself the right questions, intuit the right answers, and then be willing to fail, be willing to, have setbacks, to be willing to try. I think conviction comes from action, not the other way around. You can't be 100%. I can't have complete conviction when I started Spearmint Coaching that this was going to be successful. I had a pretty good assumption, pretty good, you know, uh, basis, but it came from preparation at some point, but then it came from action uh, and a good plan.
Well, look, I'm gonna have a little fun with you and say,
Okay.
Fran, I think that you have the conviction to do something before you really have the confidence that it's going to work.
Oh, 100. Yeah. I mean,
And so that's my point is that what do people need to be more convicted about their goals and their careers without knowing what the outcome's going to be? Because that's the world that we live in now.
how can you know what the outcome is going to be? It's a very
That's
limited
my
way to look at
that
life.
that Well, you know what?
But
If
look, this is a coaching conversation. As I like to say to clients when they say, "Can I do can I do this?" We've done the work. So they need something to hold on to. And I totally get that because they need to pay for college. You know what I mean? We're making big,
Yeah.
momentous choices in our lives, right? Do they have a conviction that they will be successful if they're pivoting towards it? We've done the work. So can I know? I can't know. I mean, there's too many things that we can't control, right? Um, but
Let
I
me give you an example. If I may, you just said something. If I could riff with you
sure.
here. The other day I was on a phone with a client and she said to me, Glenn, I'm done. I'm done going to work, having to care so much about how people see me, what they think that they should be expecting from me. I'm done. I'm done. In fact, what I've come to learn is that I'm going to show up to work. I'm going to deliver on what I'm responsible for,
Mhm.
but I'm not going to let this eat up at with my nervous system anymore. It's not going to happen. In
Okay.
fact, in fact, I'm about ready to have this discussion. Oh, I'm sorry. She said that she did have the discussion with her husband, and they already started thinking about downsizing their home.
Okay.
And the question then became, am I going to build a career to keep up, or am I going to build a career to find joy, health, and happiness?
Right.
I've got to believe that you're having these types of discussions with people.
All the time. Now, but part of my process is, I mean, if you don't mind, I'll mention one of the tools that I use that I really dig. One of the earth-shattering books for me was Marcus Buckingham, Discover Your Strengths. What are you
Mhm,
doing? What's your operating system?
mhm.
When you have flow, when time stops, what are you actually doing? I ask people that, what are you doing when you feel really engaged? And sometimes they'll say to me, whatever it is, okay, let's hold on to that, right? Um, but I think that, sorry, just Glenn, just repeat exact question because I want to make sure I nail it. I land it for you. What was the exact question?
Well, I'd mentioned the story that I had with the client
Yes.
about, this balance between, am I going to have a career
Yes.
to keep up with the Joneses and try to find success by showing the things that I have, or am I going to
Well,
start,
I'm going to ask, I
or
have
am
to,
I going to,
yeah,
or am I going to downsize to find greater joy
right.
and happiness and peace? That was what I had asked.
Depends on what her values are at the moment, right? My value when I first started working was salary driven. That was my value. Whatever I was going to do right then and there with my skills, with my unique set of attributes, it was going to be about return on investment. It had to be for me. That's where I was right then. When I moved to my Act Two coaching, I hope that this business will grow. I can't be sure, but I have conviction that I'm very good. I'm good at this, and something great will come out of this, right? But I was ready to say that what my motivations were had significantly changed. My skill set, my inherent skill set had stayed the same. A lot of what gave me that spark of joy and strength had stayed the same. People, curiosity, enlarging my world. These things are all the same, but I was willing to take a significant pay cut because I just couldn't do it anymore. I would say to when clients say that to me, I cannot, what your client said to you, like I can't, run on this treadmill anymore. It sounds to me like she had that aha moment. I don't know what caused her to call you and just say, like, Glenn, I'm done. I can't deal with, it's like, but that happened to me when I was, after 20 some odd years of ad sales. I was like, I can't do this anymore. It's like, but I knew, and she knew, and that was the key.
So, do you find sometimes with your clients, because you connect so well with people, Fran, that they're already there, but they're not ready to admit it yet?
Yes, 100%. No, not only that, they're not ready. They are ready to admit it, but they're really scared. They're really
What are they scared of?
scared.
What are they scared of?
Failing, not finding a job. A lot of times, look, I work with people like in crisis and triage, right? They've been let go, they're external forces. Hello, I've been let go. Or companies that come to me, can you please help I do outplacement coaching. Can you please help my, chief financial officer, make a good exit stage left and this helps us all because of a million different reasons why companies should do make an investment in corporate outplacement. And some of them do give lip service to it, but very few do high touch, great programs. So yes, they already know. They're fearful, and they don't even know where to start. Actually, that's
Why is that? Why don't they know?
uh,
In your opinion, I mean, you've heard these things. What, you don't just hear it, I'm sure
because when we get in our
you
car,
see
we
them.
want to go from point A to point B. We turn on Waze. Waze tells us what to do, right? Everybody tells us what to do. We've gone to college. The big jump from college is like people have been telling you what to do. Then you go to work, and they really don't tell you what to do, actually. You have to figure it out. That's the gap that I see when I have someone who's 1 or 2 years in and kind of, they don't. I'm not Fran. No one's telling me what to do at work. I'm like, why is that their responsibility? How should they tell you what to do? Right? So that's something. Um, because most of us don't have a process of even thinking about this.
Why do you think that is? Because we've just been so it's interesting, much like the inertia gets in the way.
Mm.
Maybe the very things that drove that inertia is what we were used to getting from our employers, answers, directions,
Right.
recommendations. So
Yes.
now that nobody really knows what anybody should really do, then how do you navigate your career?
Uh,
Keep keep doing the same thing for someone else, knowing that the environment never really changed, just the brand did.
right. I am.
I'm just trying
No,
to
I
throw some
agree.
things out there.
I think
I
that's a
mean,
really
these are real issues. That's why I'm bringing these things
well,
up.
look, I think if you really want to develop an offense, right, as opposed to defense, you need to have some goals. right? Um, Whatever they are. So, for example, if you're working in a, back of the room sort of situation, I don't know, accountancy, I mean, whatever, where you're not dealing with people, but you see something as a skill gap, you identify what's next in your career. That I mean, I don't want you to stop obviously counting the numbers, right? You can't stop doing your job, but
Of
what are
course.
you doing next? It's always for me personally, it has always been about next, always. And I I find when many of my clients, and perhaps you find this as well with your coaching clients, when they're coming to you, it's they don't know how to get to next. They need some questions or some tools to help them kind of crack it open to sort of say, well, and sometimes you have to think about it. It's like, I don't know really what interests me next. All right, so let's delve into that, you know.
So tell me about this parable that you have about golf.
You
What's
play
that all
you
about?
play golf?
You know what? I retired because I just was so bad at it. But
Oh,
but but still,
I'm bad.
I appreciate the game and it taught me a lot of lessons.
Yeah. I mean, I just started during COVID. Like, this is a great example. Like, okay, we're all sort of stuck in our houses. It's like, all right, what can I do here? And that's just a couple of years after my coaching business started. So I was very, very busy. But in terms of getting outside, and I'm a real big believer in, you know, outside environments, not convening with nature, so to speak, but getting outdoors, and exercise. I'm just fairly fanatical about exercise and endorphins. And a lot of my friends, I had the presumption I could never do this. I can't play. I'm like, why? I'm looking at all these women or men who don't look particularly like fit or whatever, and they're great golfers. Um, People always say like if you're, a liar and a cheat on the golf course, you're a liar and cheat in life.
Hmm.
I think I kind of believe that, but more importantly, I think it shows how people deal with challenge. I think it shows how people deal with big picture thinking about small increments of improvement, and about long-term goals. My long-term goal was like, I want to understand how to use this bag of tools to get myself around a way where I feel comfortable, not being the best, not being the worst, but I feel comfortable and can enjoy the social environment. Um, and I did it. It took me like 5 or 6 years. It's like, but it's great, and it's one of the most frustrating things for most people. It's a very frustrating game. You could see how people deal with adversity because the ball is not moving. Okay, think about it. In any other sport, it should be doubly as hard. It's because the ball's moving. You're moving, right? To make contact back to football, like everybody's moving. The ball is standing still, but it's a game of tiny, tiny movements for improvement.
So you just reminded me of an incident I had very early in my career. I was working for Sunkist juice beverages, and we have at the time Sunkist was the largest licensed brand in the world,
Wow.
and we were in PGA West in I'm going to set this up. PGA West in Palm Springs or Palm
Mhm.
Desert, and I was young. I mean, I'm in my early 20s, and I was now golfing with the president of Tropicana.
Right.
And I said to him, "Look, I'm not a very good golfer. I'm still learning." And he said,
Right.
"Look, Glenn, I don't ever want you to forget this." And it plays off of what you just said, Fran. He said, "Glenn, I just want you to observe today.
Mm.
You play, I don't care where you hit the ball, just have fun and observe." He goes, "In fact, let me show you. You see that gentleman right over there? He's been with Sunkist for years, but I want you to observe him right here." And so he went he shanked one to the right
Mhm.
and he threw his club. And he goes, "See, that's why he'll never be more
Right.
than a senior director,
Right.
because what you'll learn on the course are those that are built to be leaders and can work well under pressure.
Mhm.
And you learn about those that just can never handle the
Yes.
pressure because they're trying to be too perfect. And
Yes.
we don't need people that want to be perfect. We need people who are open-minded to assess and understand the adversity. Because when you see adversity really close, it seems overwhelming. And that's why, he just threw the club. But when you step back, you start to realize that adversity shares so much opportunity that you can go
Absolutely.
after. And
Absolutely.
so anyway, I thought I'd share my own
I love
experience
that. No,
with
I
it.
love, and that's exactly right. That exactly lands the whole thing. And I think that the unique situation of golf, it is such a low tee, low, it's a game of gentlemen, meaning like, you could beat somebody up in a lot of other sports, right? Get all the adrenaline out. Here, it's about self-management, right?
Okay,
You have,
so
don't throw
let's
the
go there.
club.
Yeah, no. Well, let's end our conversation with that because that was a beautiful transition.
Thank you.
It's about self-management.
Mm,
It's about not being zoomed into the adversity.
100%.
It's about being zoomed out. So let's pull people out a little bit who are watching and are listening to our conversation right now. When you look at what's going on in the world right now, all the changes, war, AI, um, um, the epidemics that are happening in healthcare, all these things. When you look at it up close, it seems insurmountable.
Mm,
When you feel like you hate your job and you don't want to wake up, that feels insurmountable.
right,
But when we zoom out, we begin to realize that when was there ever a time
right.
that wasn't uncertain?
No.
This is just a different layer. Now, if I were going to ask you, well, I am going to ask you,
Okay.
what is different today when we zoom out of the adversity
Yeah.
than it's been in the past?
Oh,
And what is it that you see as the biggest threat to one's career? And then what do you see as the biggest opportunity?
right. So I think that's really three questions. Let me make sure I land all three. The first one, I see the external drivers because I mean, I don't want to put social media, blah, 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 right? But there's just so much chatter out there. It's just like that having, that's why conviction is so important, Glenn, right? I mean, again, we understand what conviction is really motivated by, but I don't know if it's going to be certainly good. I'm going to try, right? If we allow all of the external, I can say one thing. If you allow everyone else to dictate what you do, you are going to, you're going to be playing their game, not your game, which is really, why would you do that? It's like, that's let them play their game. You play your game. It's like, so I think, you know, I do think there's so much out there and it's all very general. And that self-awareness piece of understanding what matters to you, what motivates you, where your natural inherent strengths are, also leads me into the third thing, which is like, where do we find opportunity in this crazy world? Again, it's by
Hmm.
understanding where you fit into whatever new crazy world there is out there. I don't know what it is. Neither do you, and neither does anybody. So, but somewhere in that new org chart in the sky, there's opportunity, I believe, for everybody. You just have to know who you are and then be willing to do the work and see what the real opportunities are. I mean, I can't help clients find a job that doesn't exist, really. Yeah, right. So we have to be pragmatic and strategic about this. But it doesn't mean anything if you don't understand where your values, where you're coming from, and let everybody else tell you, because that's not helpful at all.
Well, friend, you and I can talk for a long time,
Glenn,
and I really enjoy you, and
oh, thanks.
I really appreciate your time and your enthusiasm,
Thanks.
and just addressing things that uh, you know they're not easy to address,
Yeah,
but I knew that we can have a discussion that would at least bring these topics to the table, um, and hopefully, what people walk away with is the realization that, hey, many of us feel uncertain and afraid and scared because we bet on everybody else's playbook but our own.
yeah,
And now it's time to work with people like you, Fran, that can help them discover their own playbook because the old one isn't going to get them there. It's going to get them deeper into the quicksand. So thank you so much for your time. Do you have any a closing comment?
No, I think what you said is just exactly nails it on the head. It's like, can't run by anybody else's playbook, and discover your own. And as a humanist, I believe that most people do have the answers right inside. That's what coaching is really all about, is figuring out what your answer is, right? And I always, when I get to the end or a conclusion or some real point that a client kind of like the nub of something, clients very often say to me, I thought that was the answer, right? I actually kind of had a hunch, Fran. Oh, that's what I was thinking all along. I'm like, okay, well, but now it's gone from alpha to beta. They kind of knew it, but now they feel it.
Well, and this is why people that follow everybody else's playbook but their own are in dire need of reclaiming
Mhm.
who they've always been.
Mhm.
And this is why I believe that now is not the time, or it never really was, to try to come up with a new identity for yourself or a new strategy for yourself. It's the one you've always had, but never took the time to claim it.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think this is important because when you go back even, to the discussions around colleges and career prep or career opportunities for students, you see, they're in the process of trying to claim their identity, while people our age are trying to reclaim it. And so what I see now is a family unit that has been principally defined by old, outdated standards. And now we need to create a family unit that can invite the kids to start redefining what that family unit should be, which is, I hope, a balance of both, because we cannot continue the way we have and
Mhm.
to get us to where we want to go. So you never thought that the conversation would end like this, did you?
No, I didn't, but it's a great way to end.
It makes sense, doesn't it?
It does.
So look, Fran, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
We will be in touch. And as I leave every show, when you earn conviction, you will see things that others won't,
Mm.
do what others don't, and keep pushing when prudence says quit.
Mm.
Thank you very much, Jan. I
Thanks.
really appreciated
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks for listening to Personalization Outbreak. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss a show. If you enjoyed the content, visit ageofpersonalization.com to check out our free streaming video series and learn how to get involved in the movement. I'm Glenn Llopis. I wish you a good day, and remember, without strategy, change is merely substitution, not evolution.